guys, and welcome back to Real Life with Abby. My name is Abimbola. Thank you so much for stopping by. So if this is your first time on my channel, or you've been here before but have never subscribed, please consider subscribing by clicking on the red button and then click on the bell to turn on the notification so you can be notified whenever I post new videos. If you've already subscribed, thank you so much for coming back. It's really good to see you again. I appreciate you guys. I always appreciate you guys. Alright guys, so my sister sent me this voice note yesterday morning, and when I first listened to it, I thought it was one of those messages that people just send around, you know, using someone else's photograph just because they've had a misunderstanding and want to give that person some stress. Then about half an hour later, she sent me some Facebook posts to confirm what the voice note actually said. So I want you to listen to the voice note.
Yeah, báwo ni Bíọ́lá? Báwo ni iṣẹ́ ń kọ́? Ǹjọ́ ìkànnú àwọn ọmọ wa leléyìí, ọmọ Ìgbò ni o. Client ló gun pa láàárọ̀ yìí o. So à ń wá ẹbí ẹ̀. Ẹ ṣáà máa bá wa spread the picture yẹn kiri. À ń wá ẹbí ẹ̀ o. Bóyá a máa rí ẹni tó mọ̀ o. Àti Toronto ló ti relocate wá síbí. Wọ́n ti ń pa àwọn èèyàn kiri. Àmọ́ anybody tó tán mọ́. Wọ́n ti pe Nigerian Association báyìí sìn. Client ló gun pa láàárọ̀ yìí.
So the voice note was in Yoruba, and it basically said this lady, her name is Deborah Onwu. She was yamutued yesterday morning by her client. She has no family and we are trying to trace anyone that knows her. So please share the message. It was quite difficult to believe because the voice note said she had no family and they were trying to trace anyone that knew her. I thought it was impossible because you would expect her to have a nest of kin details on her file, which is what happens here in the UK. But by the time I dig deeper and listen to the CTV Calgary report on the case, I actually discovered that it was true that she had no children and no family at all in Canada. This is such a sad case and just reminded me of this song by Sunny Ade or Ebenezer Obey. I'm not really sure who sang it now, but it basically says, it's in Yoruba, and it basically says, Monjade lo lo ni Olódùmarè, jíjáde mi kí n má pàdé àgbákò, jíjáde mi kí n má pàdé àgbákò, ohun tí ó jẹ ni mo ń wá lọ bàbá, má jẹ́ n pàdé ohun tí yóò jẹ mí. It just means that I'm going out today, Lord, in search of what to eat or means of survival. As I go, let me not come into contact with what will eat me or what will destroy me. And I say a big amen to that. Apparently, this woman, Debbie Onwu, may her soul rest in perfect peace, was a 47-year-old woman. She was a case worker, which I believe is the equivalent of what we call support workers here in the UK. And she left her home to support this 18-year-old boy who apparently has some mental health issues. So let me just share with you what I found on the internet as I try to find out how this could have happened to this lady. According to the news on the internet, officers were called to assisted living home. They gave the address of the home at 2:45 a.m. on Friday, 25th of October 2019. The victim was identified as 47-year-old Deborah Onwu, a case worker employed by Woods Homes. So Woods Homes apparently is described as a non-profit children's mental health center that provides treatment and support to children, youth and families with mental health needs. The police arrested an 18-year-old man a short time later. So the boy's name is said to be Brandon Jacob Spencer Newman, and apparently he has now been charged. The suspect was reported to have fled before the police arrived. However, patrol officers made an arrest in the downtown core about 5 a.m. Newman is expected to appear in court on November 1. So colleagues described Deborah as someone who was hardworking and devoted to a career of helping. They went further to say, there are no words to describe the sadness our work family is feeling today. Now guys, I'm going to say how I feel about the sad events, and it is just for us to learn from it and not to take anything for granted at all. This is an unfortunate event. I have a degree in mental health nursing and I practiced as a mental health nurse for some years, but decided it was no longer for me due to some reasons and moved into something else. So I went from the clinical aspect of nursing to continuing healthcare funding. I did a video a while ago about why I quit my job as a psychiatric nurse. I will leave the link in the description box if you want to see it. I didn't really quit as a psychiatric nurse because of the fear of attacks from patients, but I actually did because I could no longer stand the patients' self-harm and yamutuing themselves. I gave a few examples in that video I was talking about earlier, and one was a particular young lady about 29 years old that was suffering from depression, that the members of the multidisciplinary team, that you have the doctors, the occupational health, the nurses, the psychologists, and so on, thought was well enough to go out unescorted, but went out to a park and never came back. Her body was found the next day in the park. Actually, I never had any nasty experience with patients, but believe me, it does happen where staff get beaten up, and there had been a few cases of death as well. There's something that really worries me about the whole setup of this case that we're talking about, this Deborah Onwu's unfortunate event. The guy was said to have been in a supported living environment. Now, one would expect that people in supported living are sort of mentally stable. They should have received appropriate treatment over time, should be on some kind of medication, and should have been stable over a period of time. So my instinct is that the organization, or let's say some of the staff, have been careless. The guy must have been showing some signs of relapse for a few days, or it could actually be for a day or a few days, which would have been quite obvious that they have ignored or not managed properly and allowed to get to this fatal stage. If the police investigate properly, you will find out that someone will talk that this was the case, that the guy had relapsed. They had observed this, but had either done nothing or did something that was not enough to manage his case. Now let's go to Deborah Onwu. I don't want to sound like I'm putting any blame or appear to be judging someone that has lost her life just because she wanted to make a living and survive. But when I read that there was a heated argument between Deborah Onwu, that is the caseworker, and the patient, and also some physical confrontation between them, it baffled me. One thing you try to avoid when with patients is any form of argument at all. You always try to de-escalate the situation. You see them getting angry, what you do is to try and de-escalate the situation. So when you see that the patient is not in the right frame of mind, what you do is to try to find a way of calming them down and leaving that area or calling for help. I really can't think of what could have happened, how far she could have been pushed to get involved in a verbal and physical confrontation with someone who is mentally unstable. It appears she had been doing this job for a while, so she wasn't really new into it. So I really don't know what happened. The guy must have really pushed their boundaries. But as someone working with such clients group, you should never allow yourself to rise to their bait. You have to try as much as possible to maintain your cool. Even if you are scared, you must not show it, because then you become more vulnerable. Your mindset when you're going to work, if you're working with that client group, is to keep yourself safe. Either you're a doctor, you're a nurse, a support worker, a psychologist, occupational therapist, whatever. As long as you're working with people in that client group, you need to keep yourself safe. When you have violent patients on the ward or the unit you are working on, and you try to make sure that you return home alive and in one piece. I don't know if this lady was working alone on that day. Even if she was, I would expect there would have been a lone working procedure in place to follow. Normally, she should not have been on her own with a patient who is potentially violent. Working with people with mental health, working with mental health patients, your safety should come first all the time. If you are with a patient and you observe they are becoming agitated, or you observe that their demeanor is changing, there are always things to look out for. All your senses must be alert. And when you observe any of this trait that the patient is likely to become aggressive, you have to take your leave to a safe place immediately. One extra second could cost you. One extra second could be dangerous. So I still can't figure out in my head why this poor woman allowed things to get to the point of her being in verbal and physical confrontation with the client. It would have been great if she was alive. If she was, there's a possibility that she could have ended up in some kind of disciplinary situation for getting into a physical confrontation with a client. But unfortunately, she lost her life. I'm not sure how things are done in Canada, but I don't think the law would be much different from the UK. If this had happened in the UK and the guy's lawyer, the guy that did this lawyer, if they are likely to claim that at the time of the incident, he was having a relapse and was acting under the influence of the voices in his head or something like that, and they would have pleaded for him to have a reduced sentence based on that. So rather than him being sent to jail, he'll be sent to a forensic unit, which is a mental health ward for people who have committed fatal offenses or very serious offenses. For some of these patients that have done these terrible things, they are aware of what they have done. They know this is what they've done. They knew before they actually did what they did, and they know that they can plead for leniency based on their mental health issues. And the forensic units are home for them, home for life, because they are not in prison but in hospital being treated for their mental health issues, and they can still go out escorted with permission from the Home Office. They have access to facilities and all that. So if it's the same case in Canada, then this guy is not likely to be jailed. But things may be different in Canada. There was a case of a nurse here in the UK several years ago. I actually worked on that ward, that same ward, a few years after the incident happened. The man was suffering from dementia and he was known to have been very aggressive. So every staff was aware that if you were going to attend to him, to give him food or medication, you must never go alone. There had to be two of you, at least two of you. He was not allowed in the communal areas, had his own corridor. But on this particular day, one African nurse decided she was going to give him his medication without a second person. Apparently, according to colleagues that were on duty that day, she felt she had known the patient for a long time and knew how to handle him and manage him. So she decided to go alone. Some minutes later, she was found dead on the floor, sitting on the floor in the man's corridor with her head resting on the wall. There was no CCTV on the unit and there was no way they could have known exactly what killed this woman. The family got no compensation as she did not follow the patient's care plan, which was in place to protect the staff. So she did the exact opposite of what she could have been doing. She went alone and she lost her life, unfortunately. So it was the family that suffered it because she did not follow the procedures. Sometimes we will find that some of these patients know exactly what they are doing. When they decide to deal with a staff member for whatever reason, they are aware of the law and how it protects them and what they can get away with. So it is up to you as the staff to keep yourself safe and follow policies and procedures at all times. You feel threatened, you call for backup immediately. In the UK, you are meant to carry an alarm. So if you're in trouble, you ring the alarm and people come to help you. People come to support you. Or even when you've rang the alarm, you run for your life. You get out of the situation. There is no replacement for life once it is taken. May God not let any of us be victims. Like I said, everything I've said in this video is not to blame the deceased, but to let other people who are still in the same profession know that their lives should always come first. You don't get into a verbal or physical confrontation with a client or patient or whatever you call them for whatever reason whatsoever. If they have mental health issues, you feel threatened or notice a patient's attitude or presentation changing, you need to know the signs to look out for, like raised voices, clenched fists, profuse sweating, eyeballs turning red or bulging. They advance towards you in an aggressive way when you're having a discussion with them. They start to stare at you. Lips begin to shudder. They begin to stammer. They cannot get their words out. You make sure you are closest to the exits at all times. When you're with them, you don't turn your backs on them. You make a quick exit without appearing scared when you find yourself in a compromising position in any of the situations. It is up to you to protect yourself and stay safe. Even if they don't kill you, they can render you useless for the rest of your life by maiming you. So you need to be smart and up to date with policies and procedures. If you're thinking of working in a mental health setting, please don't let this discourage you. It is actually very, very rewarding. When you see a patient come into your ward or your unit when they are in crisis, you can see how unwell they are, looking very unkempt, talking and reacting to unseen stimuli, self-harming, and in a matter of time you can see the difference with treatment and therapeutic interventions. You see them in the next few weeks back on their feet, looking completely different, holding very decent and intelligent conversations, some able to go back to work. It is very rewarding. So please don't let a few cases of mishap put you off. All you need to be is vigilant. Be alert, be conversant with the procedures that guide you, and don't try to be a hero. Stay alive and in good health. Alright guys, that's my own take on this unfortunate incident. May Deborah soul rest in peace and may her family find solace in God. But how do you feel about this terrible incident? Please share your thoughts with us in the comment section. Don't forget to like and share this video with others. Let's all learn from the terrible occurrence, and kindly subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you soon. Bye.